It's bigger. It's louder. It's better than ever. This still isn't your typical motorsports podcast. This is the 10th anniversary of Crush This, a monster truck podcast brought to you by J Concepts. For 10 years, your hosts, the monster truck Canucker Bradshaw and Dan Chichagash, have brought you into the minds and personalities of the monster truck industry. Strap in and hold on tight. This is Crush This!
And welcome everybody to a brand new episode of Crush This, a monster truck podcast. My name is Bradshaw, also known as the monster truck Canucker, who is currently struggling with his headphones because I realized I didn't have them behind my head like I wanted them. Guys, this is going to be a great episode on tonight. You know, a couple months ago, we had Mike Bufka on, Brass Ring Fab RC, creates cool custom scale RC chassis. We talked with him. But during that episode, we found out that his father, Bill, worked at Bigfoot as a machinist. And tonight we have Bill Bufka on. Bill was all heavily involved in the restoration of Bigfoot 4, amongst other people. Man, my setup is jacked tonight. But guys, this is also a really cool episode for, specific reasons. 11 years ago today, the exact day, is the day that we recorded our very first episode. 11 years ago today. December 16th. It was December 16th, 2014 is when we recorded our very first episode. And what a ride we have been on for the last 10 years, guys. Technically 11, but 10 years is, the true thing where when we started uploading the episodes. I'm going to actually bring Dan in here for a minute in our intro here. Cheech, it's been such a crazy ride doing this, my friend. We've had so many ups and downs and we're still doing this, and we've been doing that for 10 years. What a ride we've been on, my friend.
Oh yeah, it's been great. Man, rough start though. I mean, it kind of bad timing a little bit when you first asked me to do it. Then I get a phone call to work for Monster Jam, and it was kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword because they were worried about me spilling beans and talking about this stuff, which kind of for them doing that kind of set the direction of what this podcast was going to be about. And then it kind of really got the ball rolling around 2017 when finally I left the Empire and went ahead and started working with Jerry and then we started doing episodes and stuff like that. But it started off with just, audio stuff.
Yep.
And then if it wasn't for COVID and our good friend, oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Our friend there, Mason Paul with Monstercast, finding out about the StreamYard platform, and it just took off from there. And we've had our moments, times where the podcast almost ended, and my personal struggles with my mental health, but we've always pushed past all that and made it through, and we're still doing it. And I still remember sending you that message that one day, and it's such a cool ride that we've been able to be on, and the amount of people that we've talked to, a lot of our childhood heroes that we've been able to have on the podcast throughout the last 10 years. And it's so cool that the episode tonight landed on the 11th anniversary of our very first recording.
And it will still keep on going for year number 11.
Yep.
Yeah, we kind of need a new intro.
Yep. Well, I'll be thinking of some ideas for the new intro. Again, guys, next year,
or we could use the old one.
Yeah, we'll just use the old one. I'll hit up Colby and we'll get a new intro made for the next season.
Do we have the old one?
I think he has it probably somewhere. But again, guys, for a bit of next year, you won't see me as much because I'll be in school and focusing on that. if you'll see me, it'll be a pre-recorded episode with Cheech, but the live
Say
episode
that again? They're not gonna see you again. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, next year with school, I'm going to be focusing on that, so you won't see me as much on here, but I'll still be around, still kicking, and you'll see me from time to time. But Cheech, we're going to play one of our ads.
There we go. Here we go. Yeah, we want Brad back.
Yeah,
we're missing Brad. All right, and then Brad needs to get out of here.
You're having way too much
and
fun.
He is sweating. But the drum roll of this episode begins now.
All right, guys, gonna play one ad here, and then we are going to get on with the episode with Bill Bufka. Let's see, where's all the stuff here? Oh, here it is. Let's go this.
Are you ready to get in on the action here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel? Look no further. Head over to Facebook where you can sign up for all the great events we host right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Be sure to sign up for the events and register your name and get locked in with a monster truck of your own and get ready for the great thrills and spills right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Again, find us on Facebook, register for these events, and you soon will be competing in all the great events. We hope to see you there. And get ready for the wild and crazy action. Be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a beat right here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel.
And there we go. Yeah, Mr. Bill Bufka. Want to do, before we start on our little rendezvous and our awesome talk with Mr. Bill himself, want to say thank you to our main sponsors with our podcast, and that is J Concepts.
Yes.
Okay, we need to.
Oh, we have J Concepts in the background there with Bill as well.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, now we got it fixed. We got everything fixed right now. But with that also, if you see these trucks behind me, they're gonna be with me all month long. Just ordered some stuff for the Escalade. That is a J Concept Escalade body with the reverse tires, Renegades rims, and then I got a Lone Ranger truck, which is strictly all J Concepts. The Ford Ranger body, the 73-inch tires, the rims, the regulator chassis, and it runs the 27-turn motor on this truck. So strictly, the only thing that's that accessories, even the accessories, the blower off the truck, the blower, and I believe the front bumper is from a Bigfoot conversion kit you can get from J Concepts. I'll be honest with you, real with you. The roll bar and the rear bumper I got from Traxxas, which is a Bigfoot sponsor, but I got them. We got those too. So if you go to jconcepts.net and type in "Crush This" on your way out on getting some awesome goodies, you get 15% off at checking out with Crush This. So thank you with that for with J Concepts and helping us out with our sponsorship. Also, we are going to get back and running with our audio program, which will be starting next, I think, tomorrow or Thursday. I'll get the episodes that we've been going on back on podcast 1. But if you're missing out on that currently and want to catch up, go to monstersmonthly.com. They'll have our episodes there, including this one, ready to go for you people. If you're missing out, want to go do that stuff, go right ahead and go to monstersmonthly.com. And also our spread shop, go to Crush This, a Monster Podcast, myspreadshop.com. OSMT has it. Bigfoot also has it. Do help us out with the merch. Keep this podcast rolling for another 10 years. And that'd be pretty cool to do it also.
I got to remember the password to that. I don't remember the password, so that's why I haven't been able to upload anything.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our spread shop's on hold, so we have no income whatsoever. Congratulations. That is news. until a password or something comes out, we may have a new.
There is merch still up there. There is the current merch that we have on there. I just haven't been able to upload anything new because I don't remember the password. So we have the old school design, kind of our current logo there. We have a couple different, keep the rubber side down, shiny side up shirts, hats, you name it. We got it on there. So check that out.
Well, so be it. We will hopefully fix this problem, this glitch, hopefully soon. So that is right now cleaning house, and we have really, I consider a good friend now. I knew his son for quite some time, but he's been our second shop for our RC work and RC racing during the 2025 year. But the story behind how awesome he helped out with Team Bigfoot back when it was, big time. Like every 5-person walk on the street knew what was Bigfoot about. And it's cool to hear a story here. And that's Mr. Bill himself, not oh no, but Mr. Bill Bufka. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? Looks like you're having fun.
All the time. That's how we go. Have fun and enjoy our time and stuff like that while I'm covering up also J Concepts. We just like covering up J Concept stuff. We don't try to, but it is what it is. And then we'll go from there. But we need to get Brad maybe a J Concept thing back there.
Just like I'm covering up their poster on the wall.
Yeah.
You guys are all J Concepts over there. I'm all Dixon Flannel over here. So
well, until then, if we get a discount of Dixon Flannel, J Concepts is pulling through. So
Flannel, please.
I got some Dixon stuff. Brad actually hooked me up with the Dixon stuff. So I can't complain about that. But
my wife hates how much I have like 19 flannels. It is bad.
It's all right. It's a good time though. But so let's start this off, Bill. A lot of times we always talk to people how they got into the monster truck industry or if they were a fan and whatnot. But I'm kind of, I'm gonna start off kind of curious about how did you get with Team Bigfoot and the relationship that kind of lasted almost a decade?
Well, it's really kind of funny. It was how it happened. I was actually going to be in between jobs. I was working at Bristol Myers Squibb in St. Louis. Had been there for quite a long time, and they decided to move out of state, to move the plant down to Morrisville, North Carolina. So I stayed with them as long as I could, and I actually worked down in North Carolina for 6 weeks, setting up packaging line equipment and processing equipment and all of that, because that was my basic job at Bristol Myers. So after my 6-week period was up down there, I was basically going to be a free agent. I was going to be without a job unless I decided to move down there, which I really had no interest in moving down there. So I decided to stay up in St. Louis area. And so I was basically looking for a job, and I thought, it might be a nice time to try something different. Although I have been a machinist my whole career. So I thought, I'm going to give a friend of mine a call that was the manager up at Bigfoot, Jim Steinketter. And I had known Jim since high school. So Jim says, well, as a matter of fact, we're looking to hire our very first full-time machinist, because monster truck racing is getting more technical and more precise, and we've got a lot of things we want to do, and it's going to require machine work. And we really would like to have somebody on staff that can do stuff right away and fit things right away. So that it kind of fell into place. So I basically left one job on a Friday and started on a Monday. Now, I always was a monster truck fan, and I always wanted to get into racing, and I always was a Ford fan. So it just kind of all fell together that I'd be on a winning Ford monster truck team, and it was a perfect fit. And the people up there were fabulous, and got to do a lot of interesting things. And in the early and mid 90s, a lot of things that hadn't been tried. And uh, we ended up having a lot of great luck working there. So that's how it came about.
You started there at like right at the beginning of what now is the current tube frame chassis trucks, right as Bigfoot 8, Bigfoot 9, Bigfoot 10 were coming about. What do you remember about that time coming into the monster truck industry? You said you were a fan of the industry, leading up to that, but coming into it, what was your reaction to how Bigfoot was operating at that time? Because at that time they were the biggest team in the industry. They were the top name, top dog. So what was it like coming into that as someone that was a fan, watching them and then starting the job there?
Well, it was really an eye opener coming on board and seeing number 8 and then number 9, the first, basically tube frame front engine trucks, and how well they were already performing. It was something totally different for me to see. And of course, Bigfoot 10 was just new then, the first rear engine tube frame truck. So to come on board and seeing those trucks already in operation and looking at them, how they operated, and as things were breaking and twisting, we would always try to make something bigger, better, stronger. And so it was neat being kind of in that back end of the development. The trucks were already developed, but they had issues that needed to be upgraded. As with anything in racing, you want to go faster and better and be more dependable. So that involved doing machine work and making things differently so that we could be more competitive. So that's how that was a big shock for me to see all that new stuff. It was a real jaw-dropping moment.
Hmm. So with that, you step into the shop and you look at all these equipment. Was there anything from what you have experienced outside of Bigfoot that you brought in to help a certain problem that they were facing, that you saw that you were like, ah, I have an idea to fix that problem?
Well, one of the big things they were having problems with early on was the sway bars that they were using on the front and back of 8 and 9. Uh, they were a one piece sway bar that was a piece of material that they had heated up and bent on the ends to get the proper angles that they wanted. And the problem was when they would land real hard on a right front or a left front end, it would bend the bar and it wouldn't come all the way back to where it was at before. And they'd have to put a different length strut on it to get the truck to set level again. Well, if it was a situation where they hit hard enough on front and in the back, then both bars would be bent and the truck would come back to pits leaning real bad. So I nicknamed the truck Eileen because it was leaning really bad. So when they got to the point where they were so bad to where an adjustment link wouldn't correct the truck and get it level again, then they'd have to take the bar off of the truck, reheat it, straighten it out, but you could only do that 1 or 2 times before you lose all the tensile strength. So then we got to talking about it, and Jim Kramer knew somebody at a machine shop that could uh, do spring bar stock, spring steel bar stock, and put splines on the end of it. So we would have something that we could put on there and then make arms that bolted onto that with a female spline on it. And that way, then if the bar got bent too much, then you just unbolt the arm, slide it off, and index it one tooth. And a lot of times that would be enough to correct it. So those bars held up amazingly well. So I was lucky. I got to be the person that machined and welded up the first set of bolt-on arms, and they worked out really good. They had somebody that water jet cut them out, and I basically had to put them all together, and they worked out so good that we used those on the front and the back of all of the trucks then. That system worked out really, really good. So that was one of the first really big improvements in sway control.
You know, around that, the early 90s, the Penda series, that was the series, I feel, at the time. And that's the series I look back on fondly. And when you talk about the Penda series, one year that you always have to think of is 1993 and Bigfoot 11, aka Wildfoot. And you were there during the building of that truck, and the whole R&D with that, with Andy and all that. Before getting into Wildfoot, just talk about the Penda series and how special of a time that was in the industry. And what do you like? What do you think about, like, a guy like myself look back on that fondly, because I grew up in that era? What do you think of people still, remembering the Penda series and holding it in such high regard?
Well, it was really, really interesting because when I came on board up there, we already had the chassis from Dan Patrick, the basic chassis, and they assigned that to me to start making parts for it, start putting things together. And I just about got a good start on that. And then we got sidelined from that to go back on Bigfoot 10 because they were having troubles with the engine mounts on the rear engine. When they would land real hard, the engine would droop down, and we were concerned that if they landed too hard, it might drop the engine completely if the mounts tore off the frame. And then, of course, you'd had misalignment with the transfer case and all of that too. So uh, basically, Gary Saline, our engine man, who was a truck puller, and I got together and looked and studied the situation and approached Bob Chandler and Jim Kramer about converting 10 to be an engine plate truck where the front and rear of the engine would have an engine plate bolted to the engine and set into the frame and bolted to the frame so that it was a complete unit, like drag cars and funny cars and pro stocks all use the same setup. All the truck pullers use the same thing.
So what were they
So
using beforehand?
they were just using side engine mounts, and had bracketry came off the side frame rails on the truck. And apparently they never had any real serious issues with 8 and 9 because they were basically done the same way. But apparently with 10, they had issues several times where they had to shim it to get the engine alignment correct with the transmission and transfer case, and it just kept getting progressively worse. And for fear of losing an engine, that's when we really pushed them to consider taking the truck off the schedule so we could convert it. And so they finally agreed to it. They took it off the schedule and substituted other trucks in its place. And so we went to work on that. And Gary and I designed front and rear plates, and I did all the machine work to make everything fit. And basically, the front and rear plates were basically bolted to the engine when the engine was set down into the chassis, and then there were some through bolts that went to the tabs that were welded on the side rails of the frame. And it just made engine changing so much easier because you basically just set it right down on the rails and put the bolts in it. Boom, everything's located the same way every time. So that worked out really good. So consequently, every truck after that had the same setup engineered into it right away.
You talk about, we talked a little bit about the Penda series and stuff like that was going on. And then, like you said before, the 93 season with, the beginning of you guys having the start of Bigfoot 11, which, in the Penda series back in 93, you couldn't have the same name truck on two different bodies, since Wildfoot and Snakebite. What do you remember back how serious a weekend was for Penda? When you guys are about to start a Penda race, let's say you're getting ready for Bloomsburg, how far in advance did you guys have to prep? for the trucks, or was it like the week before Bloomsburg, you had a Ford car crash or a monster truck show at another fairground or something like that? But like how I'm basing on what I think what we did at Hall Brothers. We have an event before the Jamboree, then we have our Jamboree, and then continue on. So they always think of Penda back then like kind of the NASCAR NHRA of monster truck racing compared to TNT. But how was it, the prepping and stuff like that for one of those outdoor events?
Well, we always scheduling. They always really knew ahead of time what trucks that they were going to send to the major Penda races because that was priority one. But then obviously they had a priority with Ford Motor Company since they were a major sponsor, and also with Firestone. So you have to take care of your sponsors too. So if they did have to send what was going to be their number one and number two trucks that were going to race in the Penda series, they would try to regulate just what events they sent them to as far as the hazard of doing damage to the trucks, because you only have so much time after doing a display or a car crush at a Ford dealership to get the truck back in shape again, because obviously the Penda Point Series, that was priority one. And anybody that followed Penda knows that that was the prime racing series. That was all out racing, survival of the fittest, survival of the team that had the most spare parts and personnel to put a truck back together when they broke something. And Bigfoot was very focused on preparation. And like I said, if they did an event and something would happen, then it was all hands on deck. Do whatever you have to do. If you have to work all night long, whatever it takes to get that truck up and ready so that when it goes to the Penda race, it's set on kill.
One thing that I've always wondered, you look at back in the 93 season in Lima, Ohio, the infamous wheelie run, that it gets talked about still to this day, just the combination of, Andy, brand new truck, that man seemed like he had no fear. He was a short statured man, but when he was in that truck, he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Talk about, the reactions that you guys had to that wheelie run and, the whole development of, that number 11 chassis for that year.
Well, 11 pretty much set a whole new standard. I mean, where we located the engine at and with the extreme suspension travel that 11 had, and then with little Andy Brass in there, who basically once he got in that truck and fired it up, he was ready to rock and roll. And when he did that wheelie run, that was the first, that was like breaking new ground, new territory that had never been gone into before. And that wheelie run has probably been reviewed and replayed more times than any other wheelie run. Of course, since then, that's basically a standard now. Everybody's got to do that. If you can't do a wheelie, then you're just not making the grade. But back then, that was totally new territory, and all of us back at the shop just were in total amazement and hoping that when the truck does finally come back down after the second ramp, that it lands okay and it doesn't end up wadded up in a ball. But Andy really made people take notice, without a doubt.
All right. Well, I got to thank another sponsor here before we get to kind of a good question. And we'll enter the domain of Mr. Bill being a Mr. Bill monster truck driver, rocking it out. So we'll be right back. I'm trying to figure this stuff out still. Oh, here we go. So my well, let's go ahead and go right there. Oh no, we'll just go there. So my question for you is with coming around, you join the work team, and then you have these kind of a divide with trucks. You would have, the current racing trucks like 8, 9, 10, and then, 11. And then, but you still had trucks running when you started, like, 4, well, actually 2, 3, uh, 4, 6, and 7. So when you had those they're totally two different style monster trucks. One's newer than the other, obviously, but even 6 and 7 and 4 were different than 2 and 3 and 1. But when you started working on the stuff, they made you start, excuse me, on assembling, working on 10 and then establishing on 11. But you still had to get your hands dirty on the older trucks too. So with that, did they have a different, did you have to um have like a kind of a book, or did you have some type of like notebook that you did with different trucks, because the older trucks were a little bit different than the newer trucks, correct?
Well, that's correct. Yeah, they're all individuals in their own way. But as far as keeping a book, I did not. I kept notes every day of what I did up there every day, but I didn't keep a separate notebook on each of the trucks. Now, good number of the drivers, the regular race drivers, did keep very good records, especially Gene Patterson. I was just totally amazed to see his journal and all the information that he had. It was really a big help for us when we came up with when Fred Reap, the current owner of Number Four, came up with the Dream Team, which was a lot of former Bigfoot employees to restore Number Four. Gene was such a valuable resource of information, but I myself did not. When one of the older trucks needed something done, they'd basically tell me what they thought it needed, and I'd look at it and I'd have to make parts for it and make it work. Same way too with fast tracks. Now there was no book on that, no military manual, so I was tasked with having to make parts for the gearbox on that one time, and it's basically climb down in there, take the cover off, and see what's broken, and try to piece it back together, make new parts that'll go in there to get it back up and running again. So there was no notebook or anything on that. Same way too with Number One, if it needed something, although it didn't get abused much after I came there, but if I ever needed something, it was just a matter of figuring out what broke and figure out what to do to fix it. So the same way too with the ride trucks with 2 and 3. Uh, they weren't being abused quite as bad, but they did break parts once in a while, so you would have to do that. 4 was still being used quite a bit for crushes and things like that when I came on board. So it needed stuff occasionally replaced or upgraded. Back then, we weren't so much worried about keeping everything as exactly the way it was when it was first built. Whereas when we restored it, we tried to do everything as correctly as we could because we knew everybody was going to be really watching what we were doing and how we were doing it. So, but every truck had its own idiosyncrasies, and the parts that I machined on one truck wouldn't necessarily fit on the others. The most common part, especially on the rear engine trucks, was the end cap that went on the transmission that replaced the tail shaft housing. I made those pretty much all universal because they used a different end on them that coupled up with the transfer case. So other than that, the shocks were pretty pretty much the same on all the trucks, but there too they had different lengths, and a lot of things changed. Every truck had improvements done on it as needed to make them faster and stronger.
One thing I found out a couple days ago, which I didn't even know this, Bigfoot 16. Now, that one, I didn't realize that chassis was developed in 97, but they didn't need it for years and years later. Do you know any information? Were you there at Bigfoot around that time when Bigfoot 16 was started to, be worked on?
No, that was after I left. I left after 15 was done, and so I didn't get started. I ended up leaving the Bigfoot organization after it was at the end of '97 because I had a big opportunity to get back into aerospace, which I had been in once before. So I unfortunately left Bigfoot, went into aerospace for 17 years. And so anything that happened after uh, Bigfoot 15, I was not directly involved in.
We'll talk about that because uh, I enjoy aerospace and aviation and stuff like that. And one person did ask me to give him credit. What was a cooler job, NASA or Bigfoot?
Hmm, that's really a tough one to say. Obviously, you get more notoriety working for Bigfoot, even though I was just one of the shop guys. I did get to get out once in a while and do a couple of road trips, but I was not by any means a competitive driver. I spent the most seat time in Bigfoot 3 as a ride truck, but ended up doing that quite a bit and had a lot of fun with that. And really got the truck dirty and nasty and got a lot of people dirty in it too, driving through a swamp. So that was kind of fun. And I got to drive the Bigfoot shuttle on several occasions and got to use it in a parade and got to go to a racetrack years ago and give a ride to a full van load of Ford Communications Network employees, along with a cameraman, and did a lot of videoing as we were driving off road for their factory channel. So that was kind of neat. And I got to drive Bigfoot 1 several times. So that was neat. I did had a funny question that was put to me by Bob Chandler at the Monster Truck Hall of Fame here a few weeks ago. He asked me. He says, "Now, did you ever drive any of the trucks?" And I said, it kind of set me back. And I said, "Well, yeah, I drove Bigfoot 1, your truck. I drove it 3 or 4 times, but just in exhibition stuff. And then I also drove the Bigfoot shuttle on quite a few occasions, and Bigfoot 3, which I drove the most of, as a ride truck or doing parades in." And then he says to me, "Did you ever roll any of them over?" And I didn't know if he was just putting me in the trick bag or if he was serious about the question. But I said, "No, I didn't roll any of them over because I knew if I did, I'd have to fix them." So I was very careful with them, not to do any damage to them. Although I did get Bigfoot 3 very dirty a few times, and it was kind of funny because Eli Mann, who now owns Bigfoot 3, questioned me several times about all the mud that was in the driver's side door when he restored the truck. And I told him, and I even sent him the video of me driving the truck down at Louisville Speedway on the outside of the track in the swamp. And he says, "Yeah," he says, "that's part of the history of the truck." And he says, "I just left the mud in there and I left the door panel off so I could show it to people." So at the open house at Bigfoot back in June, sure enough, the door panel is still off of it and you can still see all the mud down inside the door. So between myself and Rick Petroline, we took turns loading the truck up with mud.
So another question that I have, pertains to a never used body. You probably know what I'm talking about. Future Foot.
Oh, yes.
I need to ask about this just because of the lore of that body and everything that happened. Were there any plans at some point during your tenure at Bigfoot that you guys were like, you know what, let's finally do something with this? Because it sat for years, and then I think it got scrapped. I don't know when, but what do you remember about having that body sitting there and just collecting dust?
I remember the day that thing showed up, and I call it a thing. It showed up, and we had a chassis in the R&D room, and they unloaded the body. They had us kind of mock up the body on the chassis, and all of us guys in the shop just looked at it and just shook our heads like, you've got to be kidding me. First we had snake bite, now this. And we had to question them, what is going on with this? Well, it ended up being a possible future TV show that Scott Johnston was working on with a promoter, and it was going to be called Future Foot. And we had a lot of other names for it, of which I really rather not bring up right now. But we had a lot of names for that ugly, ugly body. So we 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 basically turned our noses up to it because we just didn't want to have anything to do with it. It was just that ugly, and it was all one piece, and it would have been a real job to make it viable. And luckily, not very far into the project after we got the body, the program possibility got canceled. So we were very anxious to take that ugly body off, and it got set on a real long pallet, and it got put up on the upper storage rack behind the shop, and that's where it sat till I left. It was still sitting up there outside.
Man, Future Foot. Yeah, I remember seeing a four-wheel drive magazine that had the article of Bigfoot 11, and then like on the think right hand what bottom right corner of the page, you talked a little bit about Future Foot. Now that came about the story about that truck in general, which I thought was pretty interesting. But I kind of want to know the story about how you got yourself into driving the ride truck. It sounded like they planned on having you in the shop working and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of good guys like Roy Hoosier's brother, and all them jazz. But how did you get yourself into driving Bigfoot 3 Safari Foot?
Well, I'm not really sure how that happened that I got picked for that, but it was initially local events, and here lately there's been a lot of pictures on Facebook of number 3 and number 2 out at the Chesterfield Mall in West St. Louis County. We had a big ride program out there that was to benefit, I do believe it was Children's Hospital here in St. Louis. And basically, we went out there with 3, flat loaded it out there, tired up and everything. Joe Bowen and I were the 2 drivers, and it was a weekend event. I think it was on a Saturday. And it was kind of a cold day, and it was on the back parking lot of the big shopping mall. And, we had the loading ramp to load the people, and all they gave us to really shake things up a little bit was some railroad ties we drove over, which it proved to be a real challenge to just hit those and go over those. That was interesting. But once the word really got out over the media that this was going on, the place just got swamped with so many people. It was just unreal. So they actually called back. Scott Johnston called back to the shop, and they brought number 2 out there, but they had the transport tires on it. So they actually gave rides in number 2 with the transport tires on it, the small tires. But it had a line all day too. And it went on till mid to late afternoon. before we finally gave the last of the rides. So they raised a lot of good money for Children's Hospital. So it was a great event. So that kind of started it off, and then I had 3 or 4 more events after that that I got tagged for. So that's how it happened.
And that kind of leads into a question that I've wanted to ask, and I've been thinking about it for a while. Bigfoot, all over the world has been such a global icon. People know it. They just call monster trucks Bigfoots sometimes. But in St. Louis, how was the popularity of Bigfoot there? Because that's something I always wondered. Like the hometown truck, like was it like really popular in St. Louis, or was it kind of like so sometimes?
Well, pretty much the whole time I was there, it was very popular with everybody. And when I go home from work, if I stop at a grocery store or something, or a gas station, I still have my uniform on. They'd say, "Oh, you work at Bigfoot," and then, so many times people would say, "Yeah, I know the creator of Bigfoot. I helped him build his first truck," and I can't tell you how many times I got that story from people all over the St. Louis area. They helped Bob get started. And then I'd start asking them some questions, and their story would kind of fall apart a little bit. A lot of them didn't even know his first name, didn't know where the shop was that he actually started in. And so everybody wanted a piece of the pie, a piece of the fame, so to speak. So in the St. Louis area, pretty much everybody knew Bigfoot and they wanted to be a part of it.
And so, if I'm getting this timeline right in my head, then you must have been in the trenches when Bigfoot got the deal with WCW, World Championship Wrestling. And I'm kind of curious. I know if you go to the Jim Kramer Facebook page, he talks a little bit about how he helped out teaching. Him and Lonnie did the driving and stuff like that for the sumo wrestling and stuff like that. But I want to kind of know about the story behind how you guys got the bar or the machine work to get both 9 and 8 together to do the synchronize sumo wrestling on top of, I think it was in Detroit, I
Cobo
believe.
Hall.
Oh,
Yep.
Hobo Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. So that wasn't in Detroit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Detroit. It was
Detroit.
Detroit. Cobo
Oh,
Hall.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I thought it was in Joe Louis, on top of Joe Louis, but no, because that never mind. You guys, yeah. So Detroit, yes. So I wanted to just know the story about that, and also how you know the WCW deal came about, because later on you would come out with the Stinger truck and Hollywood Hogan before you would leave to go to higher achievements, and and from then on. So how was that? I guess I would say, um let's first talk about the idea of doing the sumo stuff for WCW.
Well, it became a matter of economics. When it was first proposed and talked about, uh, Bob Chandler was very much against it. And you could tell when Bob was upset about something or not interested in something, and he would make it known, and you just kind of back off, say, okay, well, we won't go there. So, but it got to the point where they kept pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope and kept offering a little bit more money and a little bit more money. And I think it finally got to the point where they made their final offer and they said, basically, from what I heard, was if you don't take this job, we're going to go to somebody else, some other team. And I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back. They finally decided, well, maybe we better do this. So that's the way I understand it came about. And next thing we know, then the plans started coming down about how they're going to do this sumo wrestling thing, how we're going to connect the trucks together. and how Hulk Hogan's going to be in the one truck and the Giant's going to be in the other, but they're not actually going to be driving the trucks. They'll have a steering wheel in front of them with a TV camera and a light shining just on them. They'll be acting like and grimacing like they're driving the trucks and pushing each other around. But it was actually Jim Kramer on the right side of one truck and Lonnie Childress on the right side of the other truck. So what we had to actually do is convert both of those trucks over to right-hand drive. So you had to move the steering orbiter over and make new mounts and weld that on, mount that on the right side. We had to move the brake pedal assembly over to the right side and the gas pedal assembly over to the right side. The only thing that stayed where it was is the shifter, because once they put it in gear, that was all they had to do. So, and then we had to put mounts in the truck to put seats on the right side. So, and all the other controls had to be moved over to the right. And of course, the truck that Jim was in had the hydraulic controls for the hydraulic cylinder and hitch that was mounted on the front of his truck. So he would basically load and unload the front end of his truck, which would affect which truck had the bigger traction advantage going forward or backward. So once we got that stuff all hooked up, then we started doing testing with different kinds of soaps to get the tires to break loose and to create smoke and things like that, to give the illusion that they were burning up the tires, when indeed it was actually smoke being generated from the different soaps that we were experimenting with. But the whole process took a lot of R&D and was hard on transmissions. It was hard on cooling systems, and it just took a lot of work. We had to extend the exhaust pipes, big at least 5 or 6 inch diameter pipe along the frame rails all the way out the back with turn downs on them to keep as much of the fumes away from the drivers as possible. So that was easy to do, because you just work from the header collector back on the side there. That wasn't so bad. But all the other stuff, the added cooling that was needed for the engine and transmissions, and just, it was a lot of work. And then of course fitting the one truck for the Giant to get in, because he was a big guy. So all the testing took a lot of time, and we did the testing in the back parking lot behind the shop. We did it on the side of the shop, on the south side over there behind the mound. Even went over to Parks Air College and tested on concrete over there. A lot of testing went into the procedure of getting the chassis ready. Then it was a matter of waiting on the bodies, and once the bodies showed up, then getting those, all the mounts made for those, and getting all that mounted up. That took a while too. So once that was all done and everything was properly tested, then it was time to haul them up there and do the event and hope everything comes off okay.
That is so cool to hear about, the inner workings of that event. And, the WCW partnership lasted a long time. The trucks made it into the Monster Truck Madness games. I got a copy of the OG game right there. But the one truck that really never came to full fruition, the way that I feel like it was supposed to, was the Macho Man truck. The whole Randy Savage truck with, the hat and the glasses and all that. What do you remember about that truck and that whole concept? Because I think it did make it a one TV appearance, I'm pretty sure.
Well, first off, one thing I want to go back to on the testing and everything of the other two bodies and the other two trucks. I do have a lot of pictures of all of that I took while we were doing all that, and I know Cheech probably looked at a lot of that in my photo albums that I had at the open house this year. I've got a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody else has of the testing program. Now, getting on to the Macho Man truck, that was another real pain. I mean, that was that was as big of a pain working on as the Dungeon of Doom truck with all the skeletal structure in the back where the bed would normally be. But that big hat on the top of that truck, there were a lot of comments and a lot of laughing and joking went on about that. But making all the mounts to put that thing on there, because it had to be installed after the truck was unloaded out of the hauler. Then you had to get ladders and basically get that thing up there in place and bolt it down and then tire up the truck. And it was so much work. And it just, I don't know, just never really took off like the other bodies did, which they campaigned for a year or so under the agreement they had with WCW. And that's another creation of what we have now in Monster Jam with all these different creature bodies and everything else. That was what really fueled the fire, because they saw the reaction of the public with these character bodies as opposed to conventional truck bodies. So if you want to blame anybody, you blame Hot Wheels for starting Snakebite, but you got to blame WCW for all this other crazy stuff.
So, like you said, the Dungeon of Doom, Hulkster, Hollywood Hogan, and then Sting, the Stinger truck all came about because of that. I have a question. I actually have a fan question before we go to our last commercial, and then we'll go nonstop if you're all right, for the next 30 minutes. Wayne Noby, sorry for screwing up your name. He said, 15. It's been said that 15 was a clone of 14, and judging by how they were both debuted, 15 would have had to have been different than 14 in some ways. I guess he was asking, when 15 was supposed to be a clone like 14, was there any difference between the two trucks?
Well, right out of the shop, 14 in its first test was absolutely amazing, and Dan fell in love with the truck right away. It performed real well and just lived up to all the expectations, because we had incorporated so many new things into 14 and really did it as right could be. And it worked out so well that Bob says, well, let's build another one. Let's build Bigfoot 15, and let's do it exactly like 14, because we need another truck that's going to be that dependable and just good right out of the shop. Well, that was the original marching orders, but then as things progressed, they did make some changes. I don't know who it was that said that, but it seemed like we moved the transfer case a little bit different than we had on 14, and a couple other little things that they changed. And I think that must have jinxed it, because 15 was born with basically some abnormalities that affected it for quite a while until they got it all sorted out. So it was supposed to be the same, but it ended up being just enough different to create problems.
So we're going to take a minute, thank our next sponsor here, and then we'll get back into probably talking about the Bigfoot 4, restoration. Hashtag make 4 great again. So be 1 second, guys, and we'll be right back.
That's cool.
Thank you for saving my butt there, Cheech. I completely forgot which video you played before, so thank you for catching that, Cheech. Bill, one of the things in the last couple of years that made people really excited was the Bigfoot 4 restoration. Bigfoot 4 is such an icon in our sport. There's memes about it. That truck has just such a legendary status. And you got to work on that truck back in your time in Bigfoot in the 90s. So when you guys started working on that truck, just talk about the whole shebang. Like, talk about when the original idea was brought to you and when you guys started on the project and just the life that this thing took.
Well, it's kind of interesting how that came about, because when I was working there from 91 to 97, 4 was still an active truck and it was used quite a bit. They were using it more for dealership crushes and smaller events like that, whereas they were using the tube frame trucks for the all-out race series stuff, because they could go faster, jump farther, and get the job done with a lot less breakage. So 4 was still being used, so I had the opportunity to make parts for it and fix things as needed and upgrade the truck as they wanted to. So I was very involved with that. But then after it got sold, it kind of disappeared for a while. The owner that bought it from Bigfoot used it for a while, but not in racing. It was a display, and I think they had a video set up inside the cab and stuff like that. So a lot of the good parts got lost through different ownership. And then Fred Reap, who at the time was working for J Concepts, he bought the truck with the idea of restoring it back to its racing form that it was in the mid 90s. So he bought the truck and then started looking into working on it. Well, I had met Fred at some of the RC races up here in the St. Louis area, and Fred was buying some of the extra posters and Bigfoot stuff that I had. He was getting more interested in the stuff that featured 4. So we became friends. And then next thing I know, I get a phone call from Fred and Lonnie Childress about working on the engine, because it was missing a lot of the bolt-on components for the blower and the blower idler plate, and different mounts for the fuel pump and power and the hydraulic pump and things like that. So basically, they brought the engine here with an intake setting on it and a blower plate and a blower and pulleys and a belt and stuff like that. And they said, can you put it all back together the way it was back in the mid 90s? And I said, there's some major pieces missing here. I said, we've got a blower plate, but it's not the right one for this intake. So I guess I'll have to figure out how to make it work. And then the blower idler plate for the belt was completely gone. Nobody knew whatever happened to that. And the one on number 4 was unique, and it was different than the rest of the trucks. So I said, so I'm going to have to make this one from scratch, from best I can remember what it looked like when I worked on it back in the 90s. And they said, well, I'll see if I can get some pictures for you. So Fred ended up sending me some pictures from the 90s that kind of showed it from different angles and about what it looked like. So I worked from that and from what I remembered of it, and fabricated a new one out of 1/2-inch plate, and made the pulleys all line up like they were supposed to, and remade the mounts for the Enderley fuel pump, and kind of restabilized the hydraulic pump. I put a blower pop-off plate on the back of the intake manifold, which it never had. So basically did as much reconfiguring as I could, and then I changed the shape of the the delta opening that was in the top of the blower plate to bring it up to current alky digger standards for proper fuel and air distribution from the blower. So basically, that's how it started. I got that whole assembly completely put back the way it was supposed to be. And then they came and got that and took it to the rebuilder to have the engine completely gone through. And then one thing led to another after that. And they kept calling on me for different things. And the chassis was out at Gateway Classic Mustang, out at Lonnie Childers' shop out in Bourbon, Missouri. So basically, Fred got myself and my son Mike involved in the program, and we would go out there on the weekends and work along with Gene Patterson and John Pyant, uh, who were both very involved with that truck years ago. John was actually had already left there when I came on in '91, but I got to meet him and visit with him, work with him, and one thing led to another. And between the great notebook that Gene had and the fact that when they took the truck apart, they very meticulously marked all the wiring and how the plumbing and everything ran, that putting the truck back together was a lot easier to do and at the same time keep it as correct as possible. So that was a interesting process of working from pictures and trying to make it as correct as we could, and it turned out fabulous. And I remember when we debuted it at the Bigfoot open house in 23, I believe, yeah, in 23, it it just stood tall. It looked fabulous. And I remember Bob Chandler coming over and looking underneath it and checking the truck out. And he said, "This truck never looked this good when it was fresh." So he was very impressed with it. It really struck a nerve with him. So it was really great to be able to be part of what Fred called the dream team, and to be able to have my son involved with that because he was just a little youngster when I was working up there. And I've got a lot of pictures in my photo albums of when he would come up there and get to see the trucks and climb up in them and all of that. So it was a great experience for him. And fortunately, he remembers more of it than I do. So I had to actually ask him questions because I had forgotten some of the items. But then, so that went over so well. So then we decided, well, this was the same chassis that Snakebite 1 started its life on. So Fred decided, well, now it's time to bring the team back, but to rename it Make the Snake Great Again Team. And so that's how that came about. So that was an interesting process there too. We were starting with nothing, no body, no bumpers, no fangs, no roll bar, nothing. There was nothing of snake bite that came with the truck when Fred bought it. So there too, back to the archives and the pictures, and basically work from that to try to recreate it as accurately as possible. And probably the hardest part for my son and I to do was the 4-bar roll bar behind the cab because it's tapered in so many different ways. And to get it right was a lot of cutting, a lot of welding, a lot of fitting. But I think the end result is exactly what we were looking for. Lonnie did absolutely amazing fitting of the new body, and the preparation and the paint work, without a doubt, it's the most beautiful snake bite paint job that was ever done. And it's a true piece of art. And to see it when we finally did display it in 24 out in front of the new novelty building alongside Bigfoot 8, it was like a step into the past because those are the two trucks that battled it out against each other. The good guy with Andy Brass and the bad guy in Snakebite, Colt Cobra. So to bring those two back and to talk to the fans and see the expressions on their face when you see adults looking up at it with a tear rolling down their cheek, saying, I remember that when I was a boy, when that first came out, and the impression it left on me. And now to see it fully restored, it's just so neat to see. So that made it all real for all of us. And to have Colt Cobra there signing autographs, posing for pictures, the original Colt Cobra, that made it all great. And then to do it again this year with the only non Bigfoot blue Bigfoot truck there was really quite amazing, and it drew a crowd. So made us all really proud. The Make the Snake Great Again team really is proud of what they accomplished. So it was great to be part of that.
So let's go ahead and go off the topic of monster trucks. I mean, um, you were also a big Ford fan, not just Bigfoot, Ford racing in general, their cars, their trucks, and you got to drive some pretty unique Ford vehicles, and you have also tinkered with a lot of good Ford stuff. Talk about your love for the Ford brand, and you get your average guy that says, "Yeah, I'm a Ford person," but you're kind of a little bit more in depth and get your hands on a lot of work on, and also tinker with a lot of some of the a lot of the Ford performance cars.
Well, I've been fortunate to make friends with a gentleman back in the mid '80s, and he still is a very big Ford collector, and basically he started off with 57 Fords. He was really interested in the early Phase One supercharged cars, so that's what he started with because they're very collectible because they only built 100 of those for NASCAR. And of those 100 cars, I think there's only 31 of the original 100 still remaining, of which he owns four of them now. So three of them, I take it back, three of them. And so that's a pretty rare collection in itself. But he also has uh, four Ford station wagons and convertibles and things like that. But he also has a absolutely beautiful 68 Shelby GT 500 KR convertible, a 63 and a half R Code Galaxy 500 XL convertible. It's a dual quad 427 4-speed car. That's absolutely amazing car and very rare. But he also has later model Ford GTs. He has two second generation Ford GTs, a 2005, 2006, that are extremely low mileage and great cars to drive. And he also has two 2022 Ford GTs. One of them is a 64 Heritage Edition, and the other one is a 2022 Ford GT Mark II Le Mans race car that's actually set up and dialed in for racetrack use. But it's only been on one racetrack so far, and that was over at Worldwide Technologies Raceway. We had a track day over there where we took a lot of his cars over there and ran them on the track, and that was a lot of fun. But I probably had more fun than anybody because I got to take his prized possession to the racetrack and give rides in it all day. And that is a real, and I stress real, 67 427 SC Cobra. That's a former race car from out in California that regularly ran 185 miles an hour on the track. Well, now it's used on the street. I take it to car cruises once in a while. So it's a piece of Ford racing history that fortunately I get to to get to enjoy and take care of and keep clean, along with all of these other cars, including quite a few late model Shelbys. So my love for Ford racing is still there. Even at my age, I still enjoy it. I still get a thrill out of driving the cars, and but it's quite the retirement job, let's say.
That sounds like a dream job. And I'm a Ford man myself. I grew up watching John Force, dominating Fords for many years. But I got to go back to the whole snake bite thing. I bet working with Colt wasn't fun. I bet that man it was trying to be so meticulous because he wanted it to be better than Bigfoot. What was working with Colt like on this project? Because we've had him on here, and I couldn't imagine the shenanigans that man was pulling around you guys.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up about working with Colt Cobra. It was interesting. He was very excited that his truck was being brought back to life again, that the snake was going to be roaming around again, looking for Bigfoot. So it was neat being a part of that and putting the truck back to as close to accurate as we could. And he kept a real close watch on us to make sure that we hit every detail right, because he knows that his fans are going to be watching us very closely. And when we would do things on the truck, and especially when I would do parts here in my shop for the truck, the pictures would be put onto Facebook within a day or so with a storyline of what we were doing, and everybody was watching so closely and very meticulously picking things apart. If we didn't get things right, they would like to argue with us about the accuracy level of what we were doing. But we were more concerned about keeping Colt Cobra happy, because he was basically in charge, and he was very helpful, but yet very stern. He wanted it right. If the snake was going to come back, it was going to come back with a vengeance. And believe me, I think he achieved his goal. And I think anybody that has seen the truck since then will agree that it was done right.
For my last question on this awesome chat, I came back and I chat with you. Saw you at the Hall of Fame this year. Didn't see your son there, but I still talked on the phone. But for you, how was that enjoyment and going back to the Monster Truck Hall of Fame? I know you said Bob asked you a question when you were there at the Q&A, but seeing other Bigfoot employees, because you guys are celebrating a great man that was inducted to the Hall of Fame, and that was Mr. Ron Bachman. But it was kind of cool seeing everyone in the monster truck industry. How was your experience at the International Monster Truck Hall of Fame?
Well, I was quite in awe of the Hall of Fame itself. I mean, it's really kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Once you finally get there, there's not a whole lot around it. But I was amazed when I went inside the building how many trucks they've got squeezed in there, and what trucks are in there. And we're talking about trucks that I remember when I was actively working in monster trucks. I remember seeing those trucks. So coming back and seeing them again and walking around them and taking pictures, that was neat. And then the Q&A session, I watched and paid attention to all of that, and to see drivers and crew guys that I hadn't seen in a long time. Of course, they don't remember me very much because I was mostly at the shop, but I would watch all the videos when Bob would bring them back from the major races. So I knew who they were. They just didn't know who I was. I was just one of the guys back at the shop. So, but I was so honored to be able to go this year. I rode up there and back with Ken Kelling and his wife Cindy, and we just had absolutely fabulous conversations all the way up there and back. had such a great time. It's such a fabulous place. I recommend that anybody that's interested in monster trucks to make a trip up there. You will not be disappointed. And if you're lucky enough to go during the time of the year when they're doing exhibitions out in the back field, that much the better. But it's just such a great place to go to and to see so many people. I did take my photo albums up there. I had quite a few people looking at those. And the big question, the most commonly asked question was, where did you get these pictures? I said, well, I took those. I said, I took my camera to work every day with me, and if I saw something interesting, I took pictures. So I've got a lot of pictures that people had never seen before. They'd never been put on Facebook. They've never been printed into posters. Fred Reap was just here yesterday and picked up some more pictures that I found digging through more shoe boxes of promotional pictures that I did for Firestone one time. And I had some other promotional pictures that I shot for Ford. So there's still a lot of pictures that a lot of people have never, ever seen. And I would imagine there's probably some of the people in the Bigfoot organization probably have never seen those either. So uh, it's going to be interesting to see in the future because I've got a lot of good stuff that nobody has ever seen.
And then my last question before we end the episode, during your time at Bigfoot, what is one of your favorite moments that you were able to witness or be a part of?
Boy, that's tough. Obviously, when Andy won the big championship in '93, that was really and neat to be a part of that big, huge victory. So much so that they got us all together one day and did a photo session in the front lobby area of the shop with all of the important people in the picture. I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but I'll bring this forward. I don't know if it shows up enough or
Oh yeah,
not.
it's showing up fairly well.
Okay, so in that picture, though, all the important people are in that picture, uh, including Bob and Marilyn. And the unfortunate part about it, as I look back on the picture, though, is some of the people that were in that picture we have lost, and especially this year with Dan Runty meeting his untimely demise. That was really tough to handle because I worked with him those years I was there, and I've known him ever since then. And to see him gone, that was a huge loss for anybody that ever worked at Bigfoot. And of course, then we also lost John Peterson, who I worked in the same room with when he was doing transmissions. I was on around the corner doing machine work. So their passing was very tough, and losing Ron Bachman, what a great guy, the gentle giant. I just love the video that they put together at the Hall of Fame about his life at Bigfoot. That was neat. But to be up there and be around all the Bigfoot family that showed up, what an extreme honor. I felt very privileged to be there for that event.
And thank you. Also want to have a big thank you to the guy that's right now probably behind the scenes right now for helping Bill is his son Mike. Yeah, there you go. Mike's gonna go around here.
He's been walking around the milling machine and the lathe and everything.
Hey,
There he
Mike,
is.
there he is. Yeah, thank you.
I can't hear you, but I can
Thank
see
you, buddy.
Yeah, he's
And
the technical supervisor. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I can put Bigfoot back together again, but I don't know how to turn a computer on.
Yeah,
Hey, I am computer illiterate and proud of it.
yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Actually, my last question, and there's a story behind it. When I did the Toughest Monster Truck Tour back in 2018, Ron Bachman was him and Phil Norman were the crew members for Larry Swim and Christian Norman, Chris Copperhead, for it. And we were at Casper, Wyoming. And this arena in Casper is weird because where the hotel was at, it wasn't snowing. But when you drove up to the arena, it was snowing. And we were just at a pit party. Me, Ron, and Phil were just chilling. And Ron kept on going, man, I want a pretzel. Man, that'd be great. I want a pretzel. Like, Ron, there are probably pretzels here, bud. We can probably, you want to go get one? Man, I want a pretzel. I think I really want to get a pretzel. And I was like, okay, well, you want me and Phil to go get go see find some pretzels? Man, I want some pretzels.
You better take care of him.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll hook you up. And I came back, and he's like, man, you're awesome. And he grabbed the pretzel, and every single time I saw him, every single time I was at arena, I had to go buy a pretzel, and I took a picture and sent it to him. So that was my big deal of hanging out with Ron. Was there a funny story about Ron Bachman that stuck in your head?
Well, the only thing I can say is I didn't do a whole lot of events with him. The things I did were mostly local charity events, Toys for Tots at Christmas time, that sort of thing, because he would do the events with the Land of the Giants Truck Club, which was a local club here, and he would have Bigfoot 12 at the Walmart here in Fenton, and it was only a mile and a half from my house, so I would go over there and spend a day with him. And when he would want to get a break to go to the restroom or just get away for a little while, I'd take over the seat and sign autographs, talk to the people, because I knew everything about Bigfoot 12 because I helped build that truck. So it would give Ron a chance to get away. But when he was there, I would stand there in awe of how he would answer questions, uh, have pictures taken with the kids, and they would just be in awe of him because he was so big. And when he would get off that chair and stand up, he was even bigger, and you could see their eyes get real big as they looked up at him. He was so absolutely amazing to be around. I did one other event with him up at Westport Plaza with him and his dad. We did a display, I think it was Children's Miracle Network or something like that. And same thing, the kids would just line up and they'd all just watch because this guy was so big. But yet, when they get up to him, he would laugh and joke with them and answer all of their questions. It was just an honor to be around him because he was just an amazing, amazing guy. He was the gentle giant. And that video that they put together really shows who he was.
Man, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill. And can anyone follow you on social media, or they gotta follow your son?
Probably follow my son because I don't really have anything set up for myself. So,
but still, that's awesome to have you on this episode, Bill. And thank you so much. Like I said, us guys in the RC world like to thank you and your son, Mike, for always welcoming us and helping us with our RC problems and stuff like that, and watching some old school Bigfoot stuff.
Oh yeah, we watch that on a regular basis around here. I've got so many VHS tapes with this old racing on it. And Mike watches that quite a bit, so you never get away from it completely, especially the Penda series.
So, how do you feel about your boy leaving the nest?
Well, he actually signed the papers today, so now he's officially in debt. but he's moving into my one of my brothers that passed away in August. Mike is moving into his house. It's a nice place. It's going to suit his needs very well. And sometime when you come down, Cheech, you're going to see His basement is an unfinished basement. It's all carpeted, and it's pretty big. You can. Lonnie Childers asked right away when I was with him last Saturday. He says, "Can we race RC trucks down there?" I said, "As big as that place is, I would think so."
It'd be an underground club.
Yeah, and speaking of which, last Saturday, Fred was in town, and Mike and I, and Lonnie Childers, John Pyatt, and Keith Vogt. We were all out at Pacific to for the grand opening of the Bigfoot collection, which is all artwork stuff that people have done of Bigfoot over the years, and it's a really neat place. So next year when you come in town for the open house, you need to go check it out. It's a neat place in the old part of town, and they got a lot of great stuff in there. I bought 2 pieces of artwork Saturday when I was there, so it's really neat. And then before Fred left town, him and Lonnie and Jim Kramer got together uh, with Gene Patterson to check on his progress with his treatments that he's getting, and they said Gene looked pretty good. So I think they posted a picture on Facebook of their get together. So that's good to see. So we need to keep praying for Gene because he knows so much about racing and his Bigfoot history and snakebite history. We just need to keep him going. So whatever it takes.
Yeah,
That's
we need Gene here, and hopefully the Bigfoot group will sell some of that artwork online, because I've seen a little bit of it, and yeah, I need some of it.
It's high quality. It's high quality stuff. It really is good.
But I feel like my wife would kill me if I brought anything more monster truck related into our house. She already gets mad at me with how much I rewatch Penda.
Well, you can't get enough of that. That was real racing.
Hook it up into my veins. Hook it up my veins. I need it.
But for the next 2 weeks, we're probably gonna have some recorded episodes or some episodes from the past to be back on. So we are gonna celebrate our holiday season. When we come back, it will be January 6th, and that episode's Mr. Tim Hall, my boss, Hall Brothers Racing. We're going to talk about what's going on for the 2026 season. A little bit of some changing, but some big things happening. Before that episode comes about, we'll be going to Dallas, Texas, for the Cotton Bowl, whatever 2 college football teams are going to be facing each other there in Arlington, and also a group at Texas Live for a New Year's Eve get together there. We'll have the truck on display there in Texas, at Dallas, Texas, and stuff like that. So, but if you guys want to follow me on Dan Cheech Agosh on Facebook, MT_Dan Agosh 28 on Instagram, and I'm also Dan Cheech Agosh on TikTok. So I like I said, if you watch my TikTok, it's mostly NASCAR displays and pointing out some stuff. Geez, everyone. Levi, they want to do an episode with you. Okay, never mind. That episode is now scratched. We are. Maybe we could do a little. Maybe think of something. So, but yeah, catch me on that social media. How about you, Brad?
You can follow me at the Only Monster Truck Canucker on Instagram. Just Brad Shaw or Bradley Shaw. I forget which one I go by on Facebook. Shaw Speed Design Co. Go check that out. Sucks I won't be able to make it to the January 6th episode, because that is when I officially start college, but I will be listening. I'm still stoked on that we're continuing this, and thank you, Bill, for coming on. It was cool getting to hear some of the stories from my favorite era of monster trucks, which is the Penda series, and what a way to have an amazing episode on technically the 11th anniversary of our first recording. So thank you, Bill.
Well, this was an honor to be part of the anniversary episode. This was really neat, and I've been looking forward to it. I know Cheech has been trying to get this set up, and I'm glad we finally were able to get it taken care of. And also, if you're ever going to be doing another car crush and an event down our way, Cheech, and you need a couple of crew guys to help out again, like we did this last summer or spring when you were in St. Charles. That was enjoyable. Brought back a lot of memories.
Oh well.
So it was.
We could be Mike has some information in the future. He'll tell you privately, but he knows our deal, and it could be soon. So in the works with talking to them over there in St. Charles, but there's other things going on too. So we're excited about also. So yeah, thank you for your help, by the way. That was a good time. And hope it's always nervous driving those trucks around and stuff like that, but it was pretty cool having you, Mike, and also Isaac, but also having Lonnie and Jason there too, the Childress brothers. So it's pretty cool having a lot of important monster truck people at that event, enjoying their time and watching a new kid drive around and play monster trucking for a little bit.
Well, you did a great job that night. I think the people up there really, really enjoyed it, and nobody got hurt. There's just a bunch of cars that got annihilated, but you did some really good driving, so that was neat. And then also, if you're coming through the area and you need a little machine work done, you know where I'm at. So Mr. Bills is pretty much open all the time as needed. It's not a big shop, but we get it done.
Well, man, that's awesome. But once again, like I said, once again, like, thank you for being here. Like I said, congratulations, by the way, Brad. Hopefully you kick this education in the butt and get a degree and do your thing, because you're this is a big deal for you. We're there. We're here for you. You're there. Keep on. Don't give up. Keep on pushing.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a situation where you say you gave up but not trying. And if something happens and you can't do it, at least you tried.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not going to give up because this is something that I have a passion about. I've done somewhat well for being self-taught for the last 16 years, but it's time to take it to the next level and finally learn how to do this properly. And I'm also going to say this: happy 3rd anniversary to my wife. Our wedding anniversary is tomorrow, so I want to say it here. Happy 3rd anniversary, baby. I love thank you, Keach. Person that keeps me going in this world, and I love her to death. And I can't believe I made it 3 years married to this the amazing woman I have. And 2026 is going to be an amazing year, and I can't wait to see what happens with the podcast and everything, because it's like I said, 2026 it's on.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with the chat here, but I mean, this is just
Levi, get your ass in here for a second, okay? People want to see Levi. We'll give him Levi.
Levi, get your butt over here. Okay, he's refusing. He's on strike.
He's probably on the toilet.
Nope, he's done. He's not coming back.
But guys, as Cheech said, the next 2 weeks are going to be either Oh, there's Levi. There's Levi.
That's it. You only get a sneak peek.
You have to subscribe to get the full thing.
Yeah.
Next 2026, it's the Levi show.
He doesn't get any royalties for that little sneak peek.
No royalties whatsoever.
But guys, as Cheech said, the next 2 weeks are going to be either pre-recorded or older episodes. And then January 6th, he will be back with Tim Hall, talking about all things 2026, Hall Brothers Racing. And guys, this is, I guess, my last official sign-off for a while. Again, you'll see me a little bit throughout 2026, more in the summer, but I'll pop in during the winter when I'm still in school. But guys, check up on your friends and family. Mental health is a very important thing, especially in this holiday season. If you're struggling, feeling lonely, reach out to somebody. Or if you know somebody that's, struggling, reach out to them. We need all the love we can get during this holiday season. It's cold outside. Bring in your pets and animals. They need
Also,
love
one
too.
more thing we forgot. If you're watching this episode right now, screenshot it. Tag me, Brad, Crush This, Bill, Mike, Lenny. Just tag everyone and throw this episode in the mix and try to get people to watch it, listen to it, and do it for Jimmy. We got the flame thing. Yeah. And just go from there and show some love and everything like that, guys. This was a fun episode. And I really want to have an episode, Bill, with like you, Lonnie, maybe a couple of the heart and soul, the big. I know Jim has been on our episode a couple of times, so I'm kind of excited for doing maybe something like that nature.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, maybe Kenny, Ken Kelling, or somebody like that.
He has been on our episode before.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, that would be neat.
That'd be
That
awesome.
that would be a good time because I see Lonnie quite a bit anyway, and we could find things to talk about.
Yeah. All right, Brad.
All right, guys. I hopefully it won't be too long until I get to say this again, guys. But until next week, guys, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up, everybody. Deuces.